Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. It's kind of hard to come after all of the robust presentations of my colleagues in this House. Member for Scarborough-Mount Grace has a very special ability to interrogate the autonomy conversation. Member for Bagatelle-Bacolet always wows me with her attention to detail. Certainly after I listened to my colleague, Assemblyman Clark, it was an opportunity for sober reflection about the realities that we face. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, for the opportunity to join the debate at this time in support of the budget presented for fiscal 2024-2025 under the theme Unlocking Tobago's Development Potential. So before I begin, let me say, isn't God good? Yes. Ain't God good? Yes. You could imagine if the member for Roxborough Argyle was the Chief Secretary, where we would have been this Tobago here. God is good. Let's say it again. God is good.
God is great.
I wish to thank the Chief Secretary and my colleagues for their support in all of the times that we have faced together as a team. God has indeed covered us. Let me also thank the staff of the division, our industry stakeholders, the people of Tobago and the diaspora for your prayers and encouragement that continue to fuel our drive to show up daily and give of our best. And finally, I must thank my family for their support and unwavering commitment to understanding that public service is a sacrifice. And as the journey continues, we all remain committed to do right by the oaths that we have sworn to the people of this island that we call home. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I just lost 196 minutes and 43 seconds of my life this morning, listening to minority mathematics and Pinocchio logic. I further lost half an hour of my life listening to the rant of a failed leader. He stood there complaining about bats in his office, but it seems like if bats are his only followers these days. And the only difference between us and them in the past is that they are now looking down on him. Yes? So if we were to simply listen to the minority leader and his supporters, you would think that the only thing that they can say is that nothing has been done in Tobago on this island since we assumed office in December of 2021. And they are so passionate about shaping their narratives of chaos and despair. But I want to remind the minority leader of the words of the former president when he took his oath of office the same day as all of us in this room. And her words to him were to defend the public interest and not simply oppose for opposing's sake, but to add value to the political purpose. And I could dare say that the minority leader has continuously demonstrated limited capacity to do so. Instead, it's all about defending his party's interests and supporting those who are anti-Tobagonian. His chicken-licking mission, because it's always that the sky is falling. A drop of rain has fallen on his head and the sky is falling. And he wants to convince people that this is the worst administration that Tobago has ever seen at all costs. But unfortunately for him, there are many on this beautiful island who do not agree. You see, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, minority mathematics dictates that because he did not physically see 100,000 cruise ship passengers all in one place to take a head count, that nobody came here. But certainly the people in the cruise industry, the Maximen, the taxi drivers, the bars, the restaurants, all of these people who benefited, they will disagree with his logic. Minority mathematics also dictates, these were his words last year, October, that the October Carnival got bust. But yet a few days later, thousands of people flocked our capital city. And this celebration attracted more participants than the first year. And many persons declared it to be the most successful, safe, beautiful, memorable carnival they experienced that they have ever had. Even the Chamber of Commerce indicated that businesses recorded 500% increase in revenue for that weekend of the carnival. It's not I say, it's tongue say. But Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, minority mathematics also always dictates to him that the numbers are down. The tourism sector has been decimated, but nothing can be further from the truth. Because already for first quarter of 2024, the year-to-date report on arrivals already highlights a 9% increase in total international passenger arrivals by air and a 14.9% increase on international stayover arrivals when compared to the same period last year. And for the period January to the close of the cruise season on April 21st, 2024, the total cruise passengers recorded was 71,821 persons, an increase of 90.8% over the same period in 2023. Does that sound like if our numbers are plummeting? For domestic arrivals by sea and air for the first quarter of 2024, we have seen an increase to 229,829 arrivals versus 224,647 arrivals for the same period last year. And these wins were gotten against the backdrop of Caribbean Airlines still not returning to the pre-COVID number of flights, 2 vessels going on dry dock by the Port Authority, and an oil spill of all things. If that is not performance, I don't know what performance is supposed to look like. But clearly, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, this administration is not and cannot be judged by the yardstick created by our predecessors. We have instead set a new standard when it comes to delivery under duress, delivery before, during, and after disaster, and delivery outside of campaign season. Delivery morning, noon, and night. Some of us have not slept in months because delivery has become the mantra of this administration. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I'm pleased to present the plans and projections for fiscal 2025 under the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation, ably supported by yourself, and allow me to give a realistic overview on what has been achieved thus far. Our plans to help unlock Tobago's development potential. Let me express gratitude to the former Assistant Secretary in the Division, Assemblyman Megan Morrison, for her passion, drive, and commitment during her stint. And I continue to wish her God's greatest blessings and more success at the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we can say that Tobago has made great strides under this administration, ably led by our Chief Secretary. Our resilience has been put to the test, and our ability to navigate through difficult circumstances which have threatened to jeopardize our reputation as a prime tourism destination. And these challenges include climate change-related circumstances, crime, man-made disasters, and willful neglect at the level of central government. But despite it all, we have been able to survive, to recover, to thrive, and to stand proud of who we are as a people. Greatest Little Island thinking and Greatest Little Island vision does not come without struggles. But rest assured, we are all up for any challenges that may be placed in our way. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, through the presentation made by the Chief Secretary on Monday, you would appreciate that there's a level of pragmatism that is being applied. He only asked for $5.80 for every $100 being spent nationally. And we understand that while we are destined for great things, our objective is to tailor our operations based on practical realities. So please understand, regardless of the boo and cry on the other side, that the same $2.3 billion that was given in 2013 can no way in 2024 do the same things. It is impossible. Come on, let's be real. The cost of gas in 2013 is not the cost of gas today. Gas raised 3 times already. The cost of bread in 2013 is not the cost of bread today. Every single item of a good or service has increased in price over the last 11 years. And the prices have been further exacerbated with the advent of the global pandemic. However, what has remained the same since then are the salaries of public servants and the insistence of the central government to limit Tobago to receiving the bare minimum of the DRC's recommended percentage at the national budget. So if the minority leader and his minions want something to fix, let them fix that and advocate for the island to get what is our just due. Despite these facts, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we have been able to do a great many things with the resources that we have to work with. And despite what may come, we intend to creatively and responsibly manage our allocations. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me outline some of the key achievements of the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. And mind you, these wins are largely demonstrative of the division's commitment to the sector's recovery, development, and growth post-COVID, as well as I would like to highlight the dedication of the administrator and the staff of the division and all our special purpose companies and industry stakeholders. I place on record my sincerest gratitude for their commitment. Our stakeholders continue to openly share when they engage for feedback, ideas, and suggestions, and they remain a very valuable part of our tourism ecosystem. And even during this budget presentation process, they were solicited for feedback, which they provided. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, as I started talking about the figures this morning, let me talk about our visitor arrivals, and let me debunk this notion about a decimation of the sector and decreasing figures. Our numbers have been steadily increasing since we took office, despite the ignorant utterances of those on the other side. I'm happy to report that Destination Tobago experienced visitor arrivals totaling 762,054 passengers via direct international air, domestic air, and ferry for the period January to December 2023. This represents a 12.7% increase over the 681,508 total arrivals for the same period in 2022. Direct international stayover arrivals saw a 56% increase from 9,324 in 2022 to 14,530 in 2023, while domestic arrivals, sea and air, saw an increase of 12% from 667,351 in 2022 to 747,524 in 2023. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, regarding cruise, it must be noted that for the 22-23 season, the island welcomed 46,864 passengers, and for the 23-24 season, the island welcomed 103,833 passengers. The increase between the 2022 season and the 2023 season is a whopping 121%. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, still on cruise, the amount of calls we received for the 22-23 season were 40. This represents a 66.67% increase over the 24 calls in 2019, just before COVID. And I'm also happy to report that for the 2023-2024 season, we had 64 calls, which represents a 60% increase over the 2022 season and a staggering 166.67% increase over the 2019 season. That is performance. That is how it looks under this administration. Let me pause to add that we are currently undertaking major upgrades to the Charlottesville jetty in time for this year's cruise ship season. And I would like to publicly commend the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development for prioritizing these upgrades in this fiscal year to ensure that Charlottesville can continue to attract world-class cruise business. Thank you and kudos to your team, Secretary. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me turn our attention to the significant strides that we have made with regards to our tourism industry infrastructural development. Since we have assumed office, we had a lot of things to fix. Maintenance did not take place during the 2 years that we were closed. So therefore, we had to embark on an aggressive upgrade and maintenance program across all the assets under the management of the division. And these included upgrades to roofing, electrical, plumbing, HVAC works, washroom facility repairs, staircases, railings, fencing, signage. We commissioned a lifeguard tower. We upgraded our lifeguard towers. We also did extensive upgrades to our security booths, to our staff quarters, and other general repairs and maintenance. All of this came up to a total of just over $7.5 million, and these upgrades happened across the island at our different sites, attractions, and beach facilities. And this is indeed money well spent because we remain committed to enhancing our facilities and enhancing the experience of the many users. And all of this was done over the last 2 years and is an indication of our push to raise the profile of our destination. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, people like to talk about Manta Lodge, so let me give some information about the infamous Manta Lodge. Manta Lodge was handed over to this administration in February of 2023, and disappointingly, and I'm putting it on public record, UD Cott was the project manager for Manta Lodge, and we got a building that looked very shiny on the outside. But we inherited a facility with an extensive list of defects that only reared its head when we prepared to open the facility. And we spent the last year fixing those major defects, from termites. Imagine handing over a new building and termites in less than 1 year. Incomplete commercial kitchen, incomplete HVAC, inadequate accommodation for staffing. We had a number of things to fix, and Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we had to get it done. And I'm pleased to say that Manta Lodge will be officially opened on July 1st, 2024. We spent over $6 million. This is additional money to what UDCOT insists that we pay, because to add insult to injury, we received this building with all of the defects, but they had the unmitigated gall to send us a bill for $5 million in March of 2023. God knows for what. But the reality is, if it wasn't for the hard work of the team at EIDCOT, not UDCOT, I'm going to say it again, EIDCOT, Tobago Strong and Proud, they were the ones that worked night and day to get Manta Lodge ready for opening. And as a result, we'll be able to commission this new facility, which will form part of the rebuilding of our dive sector that has seen a tremendous boost in business post-COVID. And this property would be a key resource for that dive sector post-COVID. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me speak about the contributions that the division has made, the investments that we have made through the division and the special companies to the stakeholders across the tourism sector and even within the orange economy via grants and sponsorships towards building capacity, promoting recovery post-COVID, and increasing visitor arrivals and spend. Support which totaled approximately 58 million TT dollars, and this was distributed as follows. Through the division, to date, we have spent over $1.3 million, and this is support that we have given to youth and nonprofit organizations, cultural organizations, sport tourism and event tourism initiatives, and to individuals representing the island in various cultural and other activities, as well as community organizations. Via the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, over $42 million were distributed as follows. Under the Tourism Accommodation Relief Grant Program TAG from 2022 to present, a total of $36,059,499.83 was distributed to 124 applicants. Under the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Program, TOP, which ran from 2022 to present, a total of $4.8 million was distributed to 41 contracts under this program. With respect to support and sponsorship of stakeholder organizations, cultural groups, individuals, and the THA's hosting of major events to date, that support totaled just over $1.8 million. Expenditure towards events, sport, and community tourism initiatives totaled $42 million. Via the Tobago Festivals Commission Limited, assistance to stakeholder organizations and special interest groups totaled $13.9 million, and this particular set of money was spent to support cultural and community stakeholders for the staging of national and Tobago October Carnivals, the Tobago Heritage Festivals, and the Blue Food Festival. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in our push to establish meaningful collaborations through partnerships to benefit our sector, we have engaged several national, regional, and international partners in the areas of tourism development and technical cooperation, capacity building, event hosting, technical exchanges, knowledge sharing missions, and destination promotion. And some of our key partners include the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO, the Ministry of Tourism, Jamaica, the Tobago chapter of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Airports Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the British High Commission, the Embassy of the United States, and the Embassy of Spain. And further, we recently got a commitment from the Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, central government, to support the development and enhancement of our community tourism efforts on the island. And he also gave his commitment for joint destination marketing and support regarding increased airlift. So we look forward to those collaborations at the level of central government. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, through our efforts, we have established solid relationships with each of our regional neighbors, including Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Anguilla, the British Virgin Islands, and many others. And these partnerships have been instrumental in raising Tobago's profile in the Caribbean. We are bringing the world to Tobago's doorstep. And we foresee that these relationships will redound to the level of the persons operating in the Tobago space, because we will see development, we will see investment, we will see opportunities to build the capacity of our stakeholders in tourism, trade, and industry. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in culture and the arts, Tobago has continued to shine with stellar performances at the national level in competitions such as the National Music Festival and the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy competition. The Tobago Performing Arts Company has become an incubator of excellence in the performing arts space. Whether you're talking about Bitter Cassava, and most recently they did a remake of Turn of the Tide, they also have been able to engage in some very strategic partnerships with international universities and other organizations, and have the young persons who are residents in that company be exposed in places such as London, Canada, and the United States. And this is how we are taking Tobago's talent to the rest of the world. Through this administration, the Festivals Commission has injected millions into our indigenous festivals and events, and this has resulted in the stimulation of commerce within the orange sector in Tobago for artists, artisans, and service providers. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I would like to remind each and every one of us that it was under this administration that events such as the Tobago Soca Titans, when a central government in Trinidad refused to support the Soca Monarch, and we did not have a Soca Monarch for 2 years, this administration took the decision to support our indigenous local soca artists. And initiatives such as this competition and the artist development program that we piloted in 2023 and the recent Elevate workshop that we supported, these programs resulted in direct benefits to the finalists of the competition, and the Elevate workshop served to teach skills in dance and costume making to our young upcoming artists, which would serve to strengthen and enhance the overall quality of their productions. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, with respect to international destination marketing, we have led successful delegations to World Travel Market in London, ITB in Berlin, the International Bird Fair, the CTO State of the Industry Conference, the Roots Conference, and the DEMA Show, which is specifically for the dive sector. In 2022 and 2023, back to back, we placed in the top 3 most desirable islands in the world, according to readers of Wanderlust magazine. And this is an achievement that only Tobago has. Cumulatively, we have invested more than $5 million in these marketing activities. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I'm pleased to say that we have maintained our relationships with Condor and British Airways to have Tobago directly connected to the UK and German markets. And as per the mandate given to me by the Honorable Chief Secretary, I want to say that Tobago is about to benefit from a significant uptake in additional direct airlift from key markets before the end of this fiscal year and well into the next fiscal year. And we look forward to these new partnerships and increased visitor arrivals to destination Tobago. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I want to address this view. Everybody says that we should be doing more with less. I don't know if it is we have magicians on this side. Doing more with less doesn't apply for the people across the road? No, just us. Okay, yes. So apparently we are magicians on this side, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. So let me put something into context for you. TTAL's allocation, $41 million this fiscal year. And that allocation is to cover airlift agreements. So we pay for airlift into the destination, recurrent expenditure, and marketing spend. We are expected to pay for marketing and make strategic tourism investments with approximately 11.3 million TT dollars. That represents just under 28% of their overall allocation. Tourism Trinidad doesn't fare any better because their allocation is just over $30 million for fiscal 2024. But however, they are not saddled with airlift contracts, so they don't have to pay that, so their money could go just into recurrent expenditure and for marketing. In contrast, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, with respect to one of our nearest neighbors, Barbados, according to their 2018-2019 report of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated, their spend on marketing in 2019 alone totaled $27,887,560 Bajan dollars, which amounts to roughly $94,583,131.86 TT dollars at today's exchange rate. Therefore, while we continue to pay lip service, or not we, while central government continues to pay lip service to the tourism sector, our regional counterparts are walking their talk and reaping the benefits of it. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is only in Tobago where the phrase cut and contrive applies to this administration. Clearly, it doesn't apply to our central government, who is only too happy to continue to underfund the tourism sector. But they place all their hopes and dreams on the sector's growth, on this beautiful hotel in Rocky Point that someone is going to move heaven and earth to build. Give me a break. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, yes, give me a break. That cannot be it. Tourism is more than just hotels, but we fed up that talk. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, allow me to outline what we intend to do with our 5 cents. Because when you look at tourism's ask, we are asking for $197.9 million on recurrent and $91 million on the DP. So it's 5 cents of the $5.80 that has been requested by the Chief Secretary. So 5 cents out of the $100 being spent nationally, we are asking for tourism in Tobago. Under infrastructure development, we have some key flagship projects. Top of the list being the Tobago Beach Facility Redevelopment Project. Tobago Beach Facility is close to the hearts and minds of Tobagonians, and it has been long overdue for an upgrade. And we are hoping that this new facility would become a flagship attraction for the island of Tobago and is intended to serve as Tobago's premier cruise ship attraction for visitors, similar to Rodney Bay in St. Lucia or the cruise port in St. Martin. And this transformation is anticipated to positively shift the business model of operations in that space for all the services currently offered: dining, shopping, diving,
Councillor,
reef tours, etc.
You have 2 minutes of speaking time remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. We have the home of the Blue Food Festival, which we hope to transform into a permanent space. We spend a lot of money every year taking infrastructure into that part of the island, and this project will create a permanent home for the Blue Food Festival, which has become a staple on our events calendar. The Minority Leader B, number 2, member for Roxborough Argyle, spoke about the light at Fort King George. Let me just indicate that the Tobago House of Assembly is not responsible for the light at Fort King George. The lighthouse is under Maritime Services Division, Ministry of Works and Transport. However, we have spoken to them. We have a partnership. I am pleased to say that that project is currently ongoing this fiscal year. It is due to turn the sod next week. And we are hoping that within a very short time, that light will go back on as a beacon of everything history-related for Tobago. We will continue our beautification of Scarborough. The Division of Tourism has a number of activities that we are responsible for. What has been done already is the upgrade to the Lenox Noon Park and the refurbishment of the Scarborough Boardwalk, as well as the addition of all the garbage receptacles that people have been seeing around the capital. For this new fiscal year, we want to include the installation and supply of a Bella Forma monument. And for those of you who don't know what Bella Forma is, that is the She Becomes More Beautiful Tobago Heritage Lady. We want to include some tour signage, install a walk of fame for our local icons, as well as other enhancements such as benches and planters. The Chief Secretary spoke about the Highlands Nature Trail development, and this is our response to enhancing attractions for the visitors that focus on adventure and ecotourism. We also want to place heavy focus on community infrastructure.
Councillor, your speaking time has expired.
Thank you.
To move that the member be given an additional 10 minutes to complete her contribution.
Members, the question is that 10 minutes of additional speaking time be given to the member. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. As we speak about community tourism infrastructure development, we want to focus on two main projects that we are doing in collaboration with the Rural Development Unit under the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development, and this is the establishment of a beach facility, pier and jetty in Louisdor, as well as enhancement of the Speyside Lookout. And we also intend very shortly to put out some expressions of interest for individuals and businesses to monetize key tourism sites on the island, including but not limited to Mount Dillon, Pirates Bay, and Fort King George. With respect to airlift and cruise, we intend to make some significant investments in attracting additional airlift into the destination over the next fiscal year, as well as in terms of growing our reputation in the cruise market as the next best destination to see. Our strategic focus with respect to cruise will involve participating in key missions to drum up direct cruise business, as well as training in areas such as service delivery, itinerary planning, and tour development for local stakeholders through the THTI, Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, and the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Institute. With respect to domestic marketing, and that was probably the only part of the minorities leader presentation that I listened to. And it's funny that he has all these ideas about domestic marketing because he actually sat on TTAL board and none of these things came out while he was there, so I don't understand. He had a perfect opportunity while he was sitting there, him and the minority councillor, to institute some of the things that they spoke about. But definitely we also realize that we have to pay tremendous focus on the domestic tourism market because by numbers it is our largest source market. So TTAL has already been engaged to create and roll out a very integrated and sustained domestic marketing campaign. In addition to that, over the next fiscal year, we will continue our collaborations and key partnerships with agencies such as the IDB in terms of new technical cooperation agreements, in terms of the Division of Education, Research and Technology alongside the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute for the creation of a scholarship program specifically focused on the tourism sector and ensuring that we graduate very high-level persons to service the sector. In addition to that, we are looking forward to a partnership with NEDCO, where we want to start a cohort of persons who will be specifically going into tourism business and tourism entrepreneurship. And this program will be tailored to the tourism sector to Tobago and to the needs of these participants. And they will not just get access to training in different aspects of business management, marketing, and accounting, but they will also be provided with funding for their startups. With respect to product and policy development, we're going to be focusing on product enhancement and diversification. So we have to develop some robust policies with respect to return on investment, while new and diverse experiences within our communities, supporting how do we support those communities to stimulate economic activity and tourism growth. I'm pleased to say that The Assistant Secretary will have responsibility for our community tourism pilot, which will see us trying to replicate the Castara model that we all know about, that is so very famous outside of Tobago. And some of the communities that we have earmarked for that type of investment and support are Buku, Plymouth, Speyside, and Charlottesville in the first instance. In collaboration with the Division of Community Development, we will be looking at sports tourism policy development, because the Assemblyman, Mr. Clark, indicated that this is a huge industry that with untapped potential from the Tobago space, and we're looking to see how we can tap into a $500 billion US market. With respect to the orange economy, we would want to continue our artist development program next fiscal, as well as institute our yard project, which is our answer to the jazz festival, except that we will not be paying millions of dollars for foreign acts to come and perform, but rather we are taking the performances to the communities and trying to unearth new talent within communities and support local businesses within these communities. Under transportation, we would want to create that department of that public transportation company that I brought a motion to the House to discuss. And certainly we want to work with EIDCOT because they have already started some work in terms of procuring some electric buses for Tobago. And we would want to engage in a series of public consultations across the island to determine our transportation needs and to see where the shortfalls are and where this administration can take up. On the antiquities front, we have done extensive work in doing the build-out for the antiquities unit. We've also had some partnerships with respect to our Rockley Bay Underwater Museum. We have renovated the space. It is now available for us to use. We have had one cohort of our Sea School, our Rockley Bay Project School, where we had divers from Latin America and the rest of the region coming to Tobago to learn about underwater archaeological museum type activity, and in terms of getting artifacts from Rockley Bay in Scarborough to place in that museum. We've been working with the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago to advise us on how do we restore some of our historical buildings, because we recognize the importance of the tangible and intangible heritage of Tobago. And we are going full steam ahead with all of that work during the next fiscal year. So as I wind up, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me say this. There are those among us who never wanted change. They never wanted freedom. They were simply swept along with the wave of change that came in December 2021. And further, there were those on the surface who appeared happy for the change, but they held on to some damaging and negative habits encouraged by the previous regime, the corruption, the laziness, the spite, the envy. And they were expecting us to do the same. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in order to unlock Tobago's development potential, we must categorically reject these habits. Tobago must reject these people. No one said this journey would be easy, because it is not. No one promised a land overflowing with milk and honey. What we promised was to serve without fear or favor, malice or ill will. What we promised was to fix this. And fixing this also involves doing the internal work to fix ourselves, transforming our minds and hearts to be part of the change we need to see on this island, making up our minds to put in the work. Change requires sacrifice. Change requires rejection of the old ways to usher in the new. Change requires that we are willing to endure discomfort and sometimes pain to create the paradise that we all want to enjoy. I urge us all not to turn our backs on the blessings that God has laid before us, and to never forget where we came from, lest we end up repeating the harmful mistakes of our unapologetic predecessors. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I thank you.